Hello students, how are you all? I hope you are very quite well. Today the class is related to the provision for arrears of rent and unrealized rent received subsequently. Dear students, in previous class we have discussed about the income from let out house property. House property is a second head of the total income. House property is a second head of the gross total income. House property having two types of house. First, let out house property. Second, self occupied house property. In the case of let out house property, कुछ किराया नहीं मिल पाता. दिस इज कॉल्ड द अनरिलाइज्ड रेंट. लेकिन वही अगर अनरिलाइज्ड रेंट आगे के सालों में सब्सिक्वेंट ईयर में रिसीव हो जाता है, तो व्हाट आर द प्रोविजंस अंडर द इनकम टैक्स एक्ट 1961? व्हाट आर द प्रोविजंस फॉर द टैक्सेशन एंड इंक्लूजन under the income from house property? These are given under section 25 of Income Tax Act 1961, under section 25 and under section 25A. Under section 25A is related to the provision for arrears of rent and unrealized rent after subsequently it is received. तो डियर स्टूडेंट्स, आई डॉक्टर लाल बाबू जायसवाल, असिस्टेंट प्रोफेसर, फैकल्टी ऑफ कॉमर्स, बनारस हिंदू यूनिवर्सिटी, वाराणसी, उत्तर प्रदेश, इंडिया, is going to present, is going to discuss, is going to elaborate regarding to the provision for arrears of rent and unrealized rent which will be received by the assessee subsequently under section 25 and 25A. Dear students, according to section 25, इनएडमिसिबल डिडक्शंस. इनएडमिसिबल डिडक्शंस वे डिडक्शंस हैं जो एट द टाइम ऑफ कंप्यूटेशन ऑफ इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी दीज आर नॉट इंक्लूडेड. दीज आर नॉट इंक्लूडेड अंडर द इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी इज कॉल्ड द इनएडमिसिबल डिडक्शंस. इंटरेस्ट चार्जेबल अंडर दिस एक्ट which is payable outside India shall not be deducted if. यानी कोई भी इंटरेस्ट जो हाउस प्रॉपर्टी को कंस्ट्रक्शन कराने, रिपेयर कराने, एक्वायरिंग करने में लोन लिया गया, उस पर इंटरेस्ट पे किया गया है, दिस टाइप्स ऑफ इंटरेस्ट विल नॉट बी डिडक्टेबल इफ टैक्स हैज नॉट बीन पेड और डिडक्टेड फ्रॉम सच इंटरेस्ट. इफ द इंटरेस्ट is paid and tax is not deducted, then such types of interest is not deductible under section 25 of Income Tax Act 1961. Dear friends, dear students, if the interest paid in respect of which there is no person in India who may be treated as a agent and tax is not deducted as a TDS, so such types of interest is not deductible under section 25 of this act. Dear students, provision for arrears of rent and unrealized rent received subsequently also refers if as per section 25A clause 1 the amount of rent received in arrears from a tenant or the amount of unrealized rent afterward realized from a tenant by an assessee shall be deemed to be income from house property in that financial year when such types of rent is received or realized and shall be included in total income of the assessee under the head of income from house property, whether assessee is the owner of the property or not in that financial year. Dear students, section 25A clause 1 refers if any unrealized rent is realized, if any arrears of the rent are realized, it will be taxable in that year when these are realized. Whether the assessee is the owner of the house property or not. Whether assessee is the owner of house property or not. So dear students, it is my humble submission before all of you. यदि किराया प्राप्त हुआ है, ऐसा किराया जो पिछले सालों में एरियर के रूप में रहा है, न वसूल हुए किराए के रूप में रहा है, अगर ऐसा किराया इस करंट ईयर में रिसीव हो रहा है तो इट विल बी टैक्सेबल इन दैट ईयर व्हेन इट हैज रिसीव्ड, whether the assessee is owner or not in that year. Section 25A clause 2 also provide a deduction of 30% of arrears of rent or unrealized rent realized subsequently by the assessee. This is called the standard deduction. So dear friends, standard deduction under section or standard deduction under the head of house property is 30%. Section 24 clause small a. This 30% is also allowable in the case of such types of rent which was unrealized, which was errors, but these are received. If these are received, if these are realized, so 30% of standard deduction will be also allowable. Okay friends? Yes. This slide is represented treatment of income from co-owner property, co-owner property, a co-owned property. Co-owned property means such types of property having more than one owner, where property is owned by two or more persons whose share is definite and ascertainable. Then the income from such house property cannot be taxed as a income of an association of person. In the case of co-owned property, section 26 also refers the share income of each such co-owner should be determined in accordance with section 22 to 25. Section 22 is related to the charging section, definition section of house property. Section 23 is related to the determination of gross annual value and annual value. Section 24 is related to the deduction, standard deduction and interest on borrowed capital for acquiring of the house, for construction of the house. And section 25 is related to the arrears of the rent or not realized the rent or unrealized rent. So these types of provision from section 22 to section 25 are also applicable in this case of co-ownership. Okay बच्चों, I hope you are getting each and every points regarding to the section 26 of co-ownership the house property. Section 26 is also referred where the house property owned by co-owners is self-occupied. If the co-owner is self-occupied by each of the co-owner, the annual value of property of co-owner will be nil. In the case of let out house property, the owner annual value is determined. But in the case of self-occupied house property, whether these house property are co-owned, if under these cases any house property is owned, self-owned or self-residence, so in this case under this head, the annual value, gross annual value, both will be nil, and each co-owner shall be entitled to a deduction of rupees 30,000 or 2 lakh regarding to the interest on borrowed capital for acquiring of the house property, for construction of the house property, as the case may be. Under section 24B, on account of interest on borrowed capital, if they exercise the option of shifting out of default tax regime provided section 115BAC subclass 1A. Dear students, rupees 30,000 if the loan is taken before 31st March 1999, if the loan is taken after 31st March 1999, the maximum deduction regarding to the interest on borrowed capital will be rupees 2 lakh. But 30,000 or 2 lakh will be allowable if the assessee is shifting out default tax regime 115 BAC class 1A. Okay friends, so further I will discuss about the next slide. Treatment of income from co-owned property. What are the clause, what are the terms and condition and provision regarding to the income of co-owned property. Co-owned property is referred under section 26 of IT Act 1961. Also refer where the house property owned by co-owners is let out, the income from such property shall be computed as the property is owned by one owner, and thereafter the income is computed shall be apportioned among each co-owner as per their specified share. Suppose एक प्रॉपर्टी है, उसमें एक से ज्यादा को ओनर हैं, तो फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल दिस इनकम is computed like as a there is no co-owner. There is calculated as a one or single house property. After the calculation or after the computation of income from house property, these income or these incomes are apportioned or allocated between or among co-owners according to their specified ratio. Okay, students. Next, dear students, after the discussion of section 26 of co-owner, I will discuss with the practical problem, with the numerical problem, with the case study. तो एज पर इनकम फ्रॉम हाउस प्रॉपर्टी हेड आई हैव ऑलरेडी डिस्कस्ड केस 1, केस 2, केस 3, केस 4 in previous classes. So now I am going to discuss the provision of co-ownership under section 26 with the help of case study number 6. This case refers Miss A co-owns a residential house property in Calcutta along with her sister Miss D, where her sister family resides. उसकी फैमिली वहां रहती थी. Both of them have equal share in the property. दोनों का इक्वल शेयर था. And the same is used by them for self occupation. वो लोग अपने सेल्फ ऑक्यूपेशन में यूज कर रहे थे. इंटरेस्ट इज पेबल इन रेस्पेक्ट ऑफ लोन ₹50 lakh at the rate of 10%, and the loan is taken on 1st April 2022 for acquisition of such property. In addition, Miss A owns a flat in Pune in which she and her parents reside. She has taken a loan of ₹3 lakh at the rate of 12% on 1st October 2022 for repairs of this flat. So dear student, question is compute the deduction which would be available to Miss A and Miss D under section 24B regarding to the interest on loan for the assessment year 25-26. If both exercise the option of shifting out the default tax regime provided under section 115BAC subclause 1A. So dear friends, this question is related to the co-ownership. This question also requires the deduction regarding to the interest on borrowed capital which is taken for purchasing or acquiring and repair and maintenance of the house property. Dear students, in this slide represents the computation of deduction under section 24B related to the case number 5. The answer is represented interest on loan taken for acquisition of residential house property in Calcutta. Loan amount is ₹50 lakh और rate 10%. तो 50 lakh का 10%, 5 lakh. Mr. A and Mr. B share both are equal. 5 lakh rupees will be distributed in 2 equal parts, and each part will be 2,50,000, but restriction is ₹2 lakh because loan is taken after 31st March 1999. The maximum deduction will be allowable ₹2 lakh, but interest is paid by each co-owner ₹2,50,000, but restriction amount ₹2 lakh. Second case is interest on loan taken for repair of flat at Pune. The loan amount is rupees 3 lakh and rate of interest 12%. तो interest 12%, 3 lakh का 12%, 36,000, but restricted only rupees 30,000 because loan is taken for the repair of the house property 3 lakh, 12%, restricted amount rupees 30,000 will be allowable, and total interest will be rupees 2 lakh, 2,36,000, 2 lakh and 36,000, but Mr. A is entitled to get the deduction only rupees 2 lakh because ceiling limit rupees 2 lakh. 2 lakh से ज्यादा पेमेंट कर दे, but ceiling limit is rupees 2 lakh, but paid amount is rupees 2,36,000. But in the case of self-occupied house property, in the case of co-ownership, in the case of single owned house property, maximum deduction regarding to the interest on loan for acquiring of the house property, for repair or reconstruction of the house property up to rupees 2 lakh. So under section 24 subsection B या clause B refers 2 lakh rupees will be allowable as a deduction. So dear student, with the help of this case I am able to discuss regarding to the interest of the co-ownership house property. Now I will discuss with the help of other. Dear students, computation of deduction under section 24B available of Miss D for the assessment year 25-26. Interest on loan taken for acquisition of residential house property in Calcutta. Loan amount rupees 50 lakh, rate of interest rupees 10%, 10% of rupees 50 lakh, rupees 5 lakh, but Miss D share only 50%, so 50% of rupees 5 lakh will be 2,50,000, but allowable or ceiling limit only rupees 2 lakh. So then under section 24B is only allowable rupees 2 lakh as a deduction for interest on borrowed capital regarding to the income from self-occupied house property when the assessee is shifting out the default tax regime 115 BAC subclause 1A. Dear students, now I am also able to discuss with the help of co-ownership house property of case 6. In the previous case, we have also discussed about the such types of house property which is related as a co-ownership. Co-ownership means any house property is owned by more than one person. If any house property is owned by 2 persons or more than 2 persons, such types of house property is called the co-owned house property. So now, dear friends, dear students, now I am going to discuss with the help of case 6. The case 6 is Mr. R is a co-owner of a house property along with his brother holding equal share in the property. So dear student, in this case, municipal value of the house property is rupees 1,60,000. Fair rent is rupees 1,50,000. Standard rent under the Rent Control Act 1,70,000. Rent received 15,000 per month. Then received is actual rent. Rent received is a actual rent. So dear students, the loan for the construction of this house property is jointly taken and the interest charged by the bank rupees 25,000, out of which rupees 21,000 has been paid. Interest on the unpaid interest rupees 450 to repay this loan. मतलब लोन को नहीं पे कर सका, उस लोन पर इंटरेस्ट पे नहीं कर सका, इंटरेस्ट पर इंटरेस्ट रुपीज 450. Mr. R. Brothers and his brother have taken a fresh loan and interest charge on this loan rupees 5,000. Municipal tax 5,100 have been paid by the tenant. The municipal tax which is paid by the tenant is not allowable as a deduction as a municipal tax. Compute the income from this house property chargeable in the hands of Mr. Raman for the assessment year 25-26. Gross annual value rupees 1,80,000. How it is computed? In the next slide, it is given municipal value. You can see in this slide, municipal value 1,60,000, fair rent 1,50,000. 1,60,000 or 1,50,000, whichever is greater will be treated as a expected rent. So expected rent rupees 1,60,000. Standard rent is given 1,70,000. Standard rent and expected rent whichever is less will be treated as a excellent or any other, जिस नाम से आप पुकारिए. 1,60,000 कम है. 1,60,000 and actual rent 1,80,000, whichever is greater will be treated as a gross annual value. So dear student, so now in this question, gross annual value is given 1,80,000. Municipal tax is not deducted because it is paid by the tenant. It will be deducted. It is deducted if it is paid by the owner of the property. If it is paid by the owner of property, so then it will be deducted. It will be deducted. So 1,80,000 में municipal tax is not deducted because it is paid by the tenant. So annual value 1,80,000. 30% of annual value as a deduction will be deducted under section 24. तो 1,80,000 का 30% 54,000. Interest on loan is also deducted. Interest on loan, housing loan, the computation and the notes is given below. 25,000. Interest on fresh loan taken also deducted, but ceiling limit rupees as per the rule 25,000 and 5,000 will be also allowable. So dear students, the rule, the discussion of interest on loan regarding to the house property is given in this slide. In this slide, therefore, interest on housing loan is allowable as a deduction under section 24 on accrual basis, not paid basis. Pay करे या ना करे, if it is accrued, so then it will be eligible to deduct. Further, interest on fresh loan to repay old loan is also allowable as a deduction. However, interest on unpaid is not allowable as a deduction under section 24. Interest नहीं पे किया उस पे जो interest लगा, it is not allowable. Section 26 also provides that where a house property is owned by two or more than two persons and whose share are defined, whose share has defined and ascertainable the share of each such person in the same of house property as computed in accordance with the section 22-25 I have already discussed shall be included in his respective total income. Therefore, 50% of total income of the house property is taxable in the hands of Mr. assessee. So dear students, the solution of this question is representing with the help of this slide. Under this slide, income from house property is computed 96,000 and only 50% because 50% is defined in the question. So 96,000, 50% of 96,000 will be 48,000. 48,000 will be taxable in the hands of Mr. assessee, Mr. R. Dear students, in this class we have discussed the such types of income from house property which is co-owned, which is owned by more than one person, more than two person. So what are the provisions? What are the terms and conditions regarding to the computation of income from house property under in the hands of each co-owner? I hope you all taken each and every point regarding to the house property of co-ownership. So thanks to all of you for your nice listening cooperation. If any problem or query, so without any hesitations you can contact, you can call me, you can also discuss with the provisions of co-ownership. So again, thanks to all of you.